Have they shouted down there then? Alright.
Hi and welcome back to the channel. Back for another live match, and we're back at Izaak Walton Fishery for round 5 of the midweek Silverfish League. Now, after the first 3 rounds, I was winning it on a perfect score of 3 points. But then, due to unforeseen circumstances, I couldn't make round 4. So hopefully that'll be my dropper. Because out of the 6 matches, you're allowed 1 dropper. Anyway, after that match had been fished, I was still in first place. Only just though. But anyway, for this round, I've drawn Canal Peg 28. Now there's only 5 on the pool because there's 2 not turned up. And out of the 5 pegs, there's 4 end pegs. I'm not on one of them. How about that? So 25's in, 28's in, 32's in, and then on the far bank, 10 and 14 of the pegs being used. So I'm the only angler with an angler either side of me. And I felt I was up against it with all the room the other lads have got. I got Ed Warren to my left. He'd got ice on his peg when we got there. And for the first couple of hours, he's had issues with it, to be fair. It was like a slushy kind of ice, and there was times he couldn't get in the peg. And the peg to my right, peg 25, has been a bit of a form peg anyway. The fish seem to like the middle of the pool on both sides. So peg 10 and 25 I felt were the pegs to be on. And then I got Walshy up on peg 14 on the end peg on the other side. So like I said, I felt like I was up against it. So all of us on this pool were in the top 5 in the league. So it was a bit of a fish off, to be fair. And like I said, I felt like I was up against it, being the only one not on an MPEG. But it is what it is, and we'll try our best and do what we can. This is one of them types of pegs where you don't need many rigs because it's pretty much the same depth everywhere, unless you go tight to the island or tight to the near bank. So I've set up 2 rigs for 4 lines. And that's 2 lines at 9.5 metres either way, just past middle. And then I found the same depth on 2 inside lines. Now the way I've fed it, I've put ground bait on all 4 lines, but the lines to my left I've put a fish meal mix in, and the lines to my right I've put a non-fish meal mix in. So the fish meal mix was Super Crush Expander with F1 Dark. I've still got a little bit left. And to my right, I've put F1 Dark with Black Roach in. Now, I've put the same amount of feed in all the balls. I've only put small balls in. It's getting really cold now. And the water temperature's really dropped. So, I'm not putting too much feed in. I'm putting a little ball of ground bait in each line. And each ball's got a little bit of chopped worm in. A few casters in. And a few pinkies in. That's it. Not a lot, hardly any feed really. And like I said, the lines to my left, I've put a ball of each fish meal mix in on each of the line. And then to my right, I've put the same amount in, but obviously the non-fish meal mix. And I just wanted to see which lines were better, whether they wanted fish meal or they didn't want fish meal, because sometimes roach will back away from fish meal. And the only other line I've fed is loose fed casters over to the far bank. It's still quite deep over there. It's probably only about 2 inches shallower than the deepest lines I've got. So I've used one of the same rigs for the far bank line as well. Plus I've set up 2 rigs for fishing up in the water. A deep shallow rig and a shallow rig. The shallow rig's probably still set at just over 2 feet deep. And all I'm going to do over there is loose feed casters and hopefully catch some roach up and down throughout the match. So I've gone through all my lines. The 2 rigs I've set up for the deeper water are an F1 maggot in a 4x12, and that's got an O10 up length with a size 18 SFLB on. And I'm hoping to catch on single maggot, single caster or single pinky on that rig. And then the other one is an 0.5 gram Preston Kerry. And that's got a bigger hook on for fishing worms. I'm starting the match by going round the lines with a piece of worm on, to see if there's any early fish to be caught on any of the other lines. So I'll start to my left, don't get a bite. Go to my right hand line, don't get a bite. Try both the inside lines and I still don't get a bite, and I'm getting a bit worried. The chap to my right's had a few perch and little bits and bobs, and Ed to my left, he's still struggling with ice and he's not had a bite either. So after an initial 20-30 minutes of trying the worm, I never had a single indication on it. So I've got the maggot rig out and I've put a single fluoro pinky on, dropped it into my left, still not had a bite. Dropped it into my right, and hey presto, I'll get a bite, and it's a good bonus fish to start the match on.
Oh my God, don't come off, please. No, it's a breed. Yeah, big bugger as well. Hey? What?
Now that's a great start to the match. We're probably about 40 minutes in, and my first bite is a nice fish. Get me right up the field straight away.
Get in that spray bag, boy.
And that was over the non-fish meal line.
Start, eh?
So I'm thinking, do they not want fish meal? I don't know. Only time will tell, but that's a great start nonetheless. On a single fluoro pinky. We'll try that again.
Eh?
I've got the shot in so it's quite spread out. I'm all number 10s on this rig, and I've got them spread out so as it falls through the water really slow, so anything that is in the area can watch it go down. I'm also keeping them casters going in on that far bank line just to try and build the swim up. No more bites on the fluoro on that line, so I'm dropping it on the short line, and I'm starting to loose feed some casters on these inside lines where I can throw the bait. And on the two main lines, which are just past the track, I'm only going to cup in bait on these lines to start with. I put that initial feed in. I've not put anything in since. I just want to see what happens on these lines. The next fish I hook on the 9.5 metre line to my right is an F1. In this league they do count. You've got a separate net for them. Everybody put a pound in. So the winner of the carp pool, sometimes you're on carp and you're not on silvers, and it just gives you something to fish for if you're not on silvers. In the third round, I never filmed that round because of weather conditions, but in that round I had a fantastic day. I had 26 pound odd of silvers and I had 70 odd pound of carp. So I won both matches that day. I'm not expecting to do that on this pool because middle pool seems to be the pool that's doing most of the damage with the carp and the silvers, to be fair.
Lift bite that was.
But put them in anyway, you never know. There's a lot of smaller F1s in this pool as well, so it's one of them. You're not likely to win it on this pool, but you never know. And that was a bit disappointing, to be honest, catching a skimmer of that quality and then catching an F1. I've dropped a pot on there now, and I'm just loose feeding a few casters through the pot. About 6-8 casters, that's all. And I'm just still making sure that I'm feeding that far bank line. I said it's quite deep over there. I've used this same rig I've got on here to fish that line on the far bank as well. I've marked it up. It's about 2 inches shallower. That's probably about half a yard short of the island. But as you get closer to the island, it does get shallower. So like I said, I've set up 2 shallower rigs for that area. The one's a proper shallow rig, and the other one, if I get it half a section past where the main line is, it's probably about 3.5 feet deep. No more bites on the right hand line. Drop it in on the left. Again, a single fluoro pinky, and I get a bite. The intended species as well as skimmer. There's lots of these skimmers in here this size. So hopefully I'll catch a few of these throughout the day. I'm not expecting to catch loads today because, like I said, it's really cold. Temperature's dropped. This pool on the last round fished awful. I think £7 or £8 won the pool. So it wasn't very good. And I think my peg had £4, £3-4. I can only see the 2 anglers either side of me, obviously, and I'm doing well at the moment compared to them. Ed to my left, he still hasn't had a bite. A lot of that's down to the ice in his peg. And Dave Pickering to my right, he's catching fish, but he's catching small fish. Oop, I've banged the camera there, look. That's a proper small fish. But it's a silverfish, it's going in the spray bag. Hello. I actually positioned the camera a little bit better this time so you can see my right hand swim while I'm fishing it. That sun's a pain, it stays quite low. And obviously when I'm fishing to my left, it's a real pain, you can't see properly. But look at that now, the camera angle's perfect for that right hand swim now. There's a pattern already emerging where you can't spend any time on a line. You're lucky to catch more than one fish off a line. So it looks like I'm just going to have to keep rotating lines, dropping in on them, see if I can catch a fish. If not, move to another one. It's easy when you've got the same depth everywhere as well. You just pick your rig up and move it about. And there's another fish. Trouble is, it's an F1. I don't want to be catching too many of these throughout the match. As you can see, they're not very big anyway. I'm using single 6s of the original slip elastic on these rigs. And it's perfect when it gets like this, the weather. When it gets really cold.
I don't want to be getting my hands cold with them.
You don't bump any fish with it. And you can get big fish out with it anyway. So this is me adjusting the depth on that rig now so as I can have a quick look over to see if there's any roach turned up on my loose fed casters yet. I'll drop a single maggot on there and see if there's anything about. You can see that sun's moved out the tree line a bit now in the gap in the tree. It's making it quite difficult to see over there. And there's a fish. So that's 3 out of the 5 lines I've caught on now. It's not brilliant fishing. It's taking a while to get the bites, but there are fish to be caught. And that one came off in the net, tangled my rig up a bit. Luckily it dropped out.
Caught me first roach.
So now more bites on that line, so we'll pop back down the track. And I thought I'd hooked another carp here. And turns out it was an half decent roach. Happy days.
That's what I want to see.
Lovely stamp roach, look. Don't mind catching a few of those. Time to do a bit of topping up. I've made up another little ball here. I'm going to drop it on the right hand line where I caught my initial bream. Just to see what happens. Again, it's the non-fish meal mix I'm dropping on here. I'm not going to mix these ground baits up. Still trying to figure out which ground bait's the best in the minute. I've caught skimmers off both for the mixes. Obviously the biggest one off the non-fish meal mix. I've not had a bite on the inside lines yet, but I'm expecting these lines to come to life later on in the match.
Roach.
I'm going to try the worm again. It was just a case of trying different things throughout the day. There was no real pattern for most of it. Dropping a little bit of chopped worm in here with a few casters again. So I'm trying just feeding worms and casters now and not putting any ground bait in. Little piece of worm on the hook. We'll try this on the left hand line. As you can see, the sun's a bit bright now. No bites on the neat worm and caster. Yet anyway. I'm not saluting anybody or waving at them. I'm just shielding my eyes from the sun. And there's a fish. And it's another F1. See that elastic handles them lovely.
I reckon.
Not massive fish, look.
Way behind you.
No bites again on that line. Pick it up and drop it on left. Oh, look at this idiot's done here. Running up the tree as I'm going past it. Surprising how hard it is to actually break out 10 hook lengths. How hard you've got to pull. And I don't break the hook length, I actually break the elastic. So I've lost the lot. Lost the rig and everything.
Rig as well.
Gutted.
Oh well.
So I'm picking up the maggot rig again. And I'm going to drop a single maggot on the hook.
Oh, what a numpty. No. I just put the whole of my rig up.
And this actually did me a favour losing that rig. Because I hadn't put a maggot on this rig until that point. And it turned out that maggot was the best bait. Still loose feeding casters, sometimes with an occasional bit of worming, and then fishing a single maggot on the hook. Help me catch a few skimmers. By no means bagging though.
Skimbaroo.
But everything was worth catching. Another nice skimmer. Like I said, there's loads of these in this pool. If you can get them to get their heads down, you can have a great day on them. Not expecting to catch loads because of the conditions. This is another nice bream, this is.
I'm hoping it's a bream. I don't know, I'm hoping so. Stay deep though. These are. Stay on, stay on, stay on. Beautiful.
To that. Single maggot. Putting some casters through the pot. Again, that was on the non-fish meal mix. So I still don't know which grain bait was best. Although I have had my bigger fish over the non-fish meal mix.
It's horrible, isn't it?
I wonder if I'd have caught him if I'd have put fish meal on both lines. You'll never know.
Freezing cold. But I could see everything, and now I just can't see football.
Tap a few casters in, lay the rig out. Keep a few going on the inside lines. You can see it was only a pinch, that was. Shielded my eyes from the sun again. And we're into another fish. Only a small one this time. Time to get off that line. Go and try the other one. Another skimmer. So they're not massive, some of these, but they're definitely worth catching. And dropping a few casters in, look. Felt I put too many in there, so I tipped a few back out. Got a chicken for company. Tap the casters out. Let the rig fall through the water nice and steady. Keep some casters going in over. Now bites again. Like I said, it's one of them, you just got to keep moving around your lines. Hopefully you get a bite or two off a line before you move. Never worked every time though. Bless me. Quick drop on the inside lines again. And my first bite down the inside. Little perch. And that ended up being the only bite I had on either side of me inside lines. I was really hoping these lines would get good later on during the match, because then bream can be caught really close in at times. And you can have a good finish to the match on these inside lines. But it just never happened for me. I never had another bite off those lines. I never had a single indication to my left. And like I say, I had that one bite to my right, and it was only a little perch. Very disappointing at the end of it. So everything was on the 2 9.5 metre lines, and then hopefully some routes later on over. And when you left the line alone for a bit, you'd go back in and you'd catch a skimmer. Sometimes you'd catch 2. Still putting a single red maggot on. Trying to pick out the biggest one there. Hooking them through the point as I always do. Little sprinkle of casters in the pot. It's lovely fishing. Slow and steady. It's definitely not a bagging session, that's for sure. But we're getting a few fish in the net. This one's a bit better. 6-7 ounce.
Ooh. Hey? You what you say? No, he was about 7 ounce, I'd say. Maggot. Only had one on the pinky.
This is my best run off this line now. 3 and 3 chucks. And there's another bite. 4 and 4 chucks. Turns out this one's not a skimmer. It's a roach. Time to leave that alone a bit. Maggot's definitely the best hook bait. At the moment anyway. Just going to drop another little pinch of worm in. Another pinch of casters. Feed that line and drop in on the left hand line. Chop a few more worms up. No bites on that line. So I'm going to put another ball of ground bait in that line. Fish meal again. With a few worms and casters and pinkies in. See if I can attract some more fish into the peg. This peg's not been the best. So looking back on the match, I think the non-fish meal approach was the best because I caught most of my fish on the non-fish meal mixes. On the non-fish meal lights. Another drop on the inside. Really disappointed with the way these lines turned out in the end, to be honest. So I really thought these lines would get better. And they just didn't. Nothing. Gave me some time to prepare another ball, I suppose. We keep topping it up. You never know. I've given this line every chance to produce throughout the day. I'm now taking a bit of depth off that rig again because I'm going over to the far bank. See if I can catch any more of those roach. Single caster on the hook. And I've missed a bite on the drop there. So there are some fish there. There you go. That was on the drop as well, that was. Little stamp roach. 3-4 ounce. See if I can get a run of fish here now. I'm making sure I hold a tight line as this rig's going in now. Let's try and hit those bites. Yeah, look, missed another bite there. There's definitely some fish there now. Missed another bite. And there's another one. I'm going to give this rig one more try before I put on the shallow rig, because I do feel there's some fish off the bottom in the peg. Holding a tight line on this, and it's either just getting to the bottom or it's just off the bottom before I have a bite. And a nice stamp fish these are. And I'm having a spell here where it's really good. I missed another bite there, so I'm going to pick up the shallow rig. Not this shallow rig. The one that's set at about 3.5 feet deep. Have a quick look on that. I'm actually pulling it up a bit more.
Sorry?
So I definitely feel there's some fish off the bottom, so I'm going to get one of my shallower rigs and try that. See if the bites will come quicker off the bottom. This one's the deeper of the two shallow rigs. And that's worked a treat. Beautiful. I hook my caster by pushing the hook in through the top and then rolling it out the side of the caster, so there's hardly any hook visible. You've probably just got the spade of the hook out the top and then the point of the hook out the side. We're about midway through the match now and I feel like I'm doing really well. I've got a few nice skimmers, steady runner skimmers on the lines, and now I'm catching really well. on the far bank with roach. Just keep these coming, I'll be happy. Some of them are a real good stamp. Some of them are just a bit too big to swing on this 6's elastic. Bites have dried up a bit, so I'm pushing the section out, putting a section on and pushing it out a little bit further, a bit closer to the island. But it starts to shallow up. But it seems there's no fish there now. So I'll try on the deck again, see if I've gone back down. Still keeping those casters going in. Back on the deck. It's definitely slowing down over there now, but there is still the odd fish to be caught. Braving it there, look. That was the last fish I caught over there for a while. So back on the 9.5 metre lines. It's had a good rest now. Straight into a fish. Another skimmer. It's getting slower and slower, the peg is near though. And I'm now fishing a caster on the hook on the 9.5 metre lines. This seems to be better than the maggot at the moment. It's just a case of going through the baits at different stages during the match and figuring out which was the best to use. I ended up cutting out putting any worm in and just putting casters in because I don't know whether I'd put too much in throughout the match, but I seemed to just back off from it as the match progressed. Struggling for bites on that line now. Drop it on the right hand line. And I'm trying loose feeding casters over the top of the right hand line now. Trying to make something happen. Because the peg's dying on me.
Would you know the drop?
And loose feeding gets me a few extra bites. We're quite late in the match now. The last hour or so was a real struggle. The bites were really slow. I stopped catching over. Catching very few fish on the 9.5 metre lines. Like I said earlier, I never had another indication on the inside lines. I reckon the last 2 hours I probably put a pound, maybe a pound and a half in the net. So all my damage was done in the first, well, second to three and a half hours in, maybe. As that sun started to fade, this peg got worse and worse and worse. But loose feeding casters over that line definitely put a few extra fish in the net, I felt. Kept dropping on the far bank line for the odd fish. But there was never no runs of fish again like I had mid-match. Dropping on the left-hand line and catching another F1. I haven't caught enough of these today to do any damage. I don't think there's been enough there to disrupt my silver fishing. But it was definitely harder as the day went on. And this is my final fish of the day, another little skimmer. I dropped back down to a single pinky for this one. Just to try and get a bite again. And it resulted in this little skimmer.
Hey, another F1.
Like I say, as that sun was going down, the peg got harder and harder. Mark Wilton on peg 10 on the opposite bank, he had a real good last hour on the short line. Like where I was trying to catch on my short lines, I never caught, he did. And he had 3 bream, I think they said he had. So it was between me and him as to who won the pool. And that's your lot of luck. So like I say, I was definitely there or thereabouts on the pool. My only concern was Mark Wilton. He's the one that's doing the weighing in now. He's behind me in the league, only by a point or 2. Here he is, look. Draw bag. Heads weighed £5 odd on the end peg. That was mostly due to the fact that he had ice on his peg for the first 2 hours. I'm sure he'd have caught a lot more if it hadn't been for that. I've ended up weighing £10.5. Mark Wilton went on to weigh £11 something. I'm pretty sure that last hour has cost me winning the pool. And not only that, it cost me in the league because I dropped to 2nd position. We've still got droppers to take off, and I've got a maximum score of 7 to take off. So I'm there or thereabouts at the minute. I'm a point behind Mark Wilton, and I've got a better weight advantage. So it's all to play for on the last round. Now, the last round was supposed to have happened last week, but because the Sunday were poorly, they cancelled the match. So it's been rescheduled for January the 18th. I'll keep you posted. So if you enjoyed watching that, give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more like this, then please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.